I start the recording. Just so everybody is aware, I cannot see if anyone puts anything in the chat, so feel free to let me know if I am missing something. Okay, so this is our Mendeley introduction for grad students, I believe, focused on. My name is Elizabeth Kaisman. I am your customer consultant. I work for Elsevier. So being the customer consultant really means that I'm here for any of your needs related to ScienceDirect, Scopus, or Mendeley. So any sort of questions that you have, if you are interested in data, if you need help with APIs, if you need any technical support, any of that information, or if you need to understand how to do something on any of those platforms, feel free to come to me as your point person. And I will link my email address when I send over the PowerPoints when we're done with this. So moving right into Mendeley, there are 3 different parts of the platform that we're going to go over today. The first of which is the reference manager. From there, we'll move into importing to your library by using the Mendeley web importer. And then lastly, we'll go in and do a Mendeley Cite demo. And I'll explain what these 3 different parts of the platform are as we move forward. So what is one of the reasons why we say that Mendeley is the best? Well, it's really because there's an interactability and interoperability between the differences on your back end. So if you're looking for PDFs, if you're pulling something off the interwebs, using any of the different Internet Explorer sites or Firefox, etc., you can pull those references straight off of the internet or from your PDFs into the Mendeley Reference Manager, manage your citations from there, and then access them either through the internet, from your desktop, or from any sort of mobile device. So let's head over into our actual demo here. And I'm going to take us right into Mendeley that I've already had up. So when you go to mendeley.com, this is the first site that's going to pop up. So if you've not done any sort of signing into ScienceDirect or Scopus, you can go ahead and create an account up here on the top right. For those of you who already have signed into ScienceDirect or Scopus, your username and password are going to be the same for Mendeley. So if you have an account on either one of those already, you can go ahead and just sign right in. So I'm going to go ahead and click sign in. And this is our web version. Again, not the desktop version. So once I sign in, I can go to my library, and you can see this is me on the top right-hand side, so I know that I'm signed in. So I'll go to my library, which I already have quite a few references already added into my library here. But you can see there's a little bit of information that you can get right away. You have your authors, your year, the title, the source, the date it was added to your Mendeley library, and then whether or not your file has a PDF attached to it. So there's 2 different ways that you can get information. That is as a standalone citation, or as a standalone citation that has an attached PDF file with it. So there are 2 different ways that you can find out whether or not your citation here has or does not have a PDF with it. So this one does not have a PDF. When I click it, this right-hand side will pop up with information about your citation. So you have your article title and your authors, you have your abstract, and then as you scroll down, you'll have any identifiers or extra information down here at the bottom. You'll see that there is nothing under the files, and I haven't tagged this as any specific type of article yet. If we go to the one that does have the PDF, so you can see that that's right there, or if you click on it, you can see you have the option to read, to get PDF, or as you scroll down, you'll see the PDF file is already linked under there. So those are just 2 different ways to look at whether or not you have that PDF in there. There are a couple of different things that you can do inside of your library once you have this information here. You can either favorite it, which will end up in your favorites, or you can click multiples, mark them as a specific type of favorite, organize them into specific collections or groups, export them to other reference managers or different files here, or you can delete those. Okay, So that's a couple of the things that we can do just within our library, but let's talk about how to get citations and references into our library. So the first thing that we can do is click Add New up here. So you can add files from your computer that you already have saved, or you can do a manual entry. If we do a manual entry, there's two different ways to get those references in here. You can go through and you can pretty much answer all of this information, which takes quite a bit of time, as everybody knows. Or if your article has a digital object identifier, a DOI, you can actually copy that and paste it right in here, and Mendeley will go and grab that for you. The third way to get information into Mendeley here is to import a library from another reference manager. So you can actually import a full library from something like EndNote or RIS file, BibText. The only thing I want to mention with these are if you're importing your entire library from another reference manager, they will all pull in as a reference that does not have a PDF associated with it. So that is one of the caveats that you should know about before you start doing that. Now, there's one other way to get information into your library, but we'll go over that in just a second. So there's a couple of options you have on the left-hand side here. These are relatively self-explanatory. You can see what favorites that you have, anything you've recently added to your reference manager, all of your references up here. And then you have options on the left-hand side down below. We have collections and we have groups. So for us, for me specifically, and you'll see I'll use porphyrins as an example. So when I was in college, I studied chemistry, and one of the things that I studied is porphyrins. So this is going to be my example for the day. If I am looking at a group that I've created with other people involved, not only do I have access to what I've put in this group, but anybody else who I've given access to also has that sort of access to these same things. So you can manage your group, rename it, or delete it, or create a new collection if you're interested in creating another group here. The manage area is going to allow you to add other people here. So as we go into our notebook here, you'll actually see other people have the ability to mark up my PDFs and make notes that I can see what they've written. So if you're doing collaborations with other grad students, research professors, collaborators, or other researchers in your field, you're actually able to share and kind of collaborate on these sorts of references and citations much easier this way. If you're looking for a collection here, or something where, let's say I don't want to create a group because I don't want to share this information with other people, what I can do is in all of my references, I can add them to a collection, right? So I can create a new collection, I can go to all references, and I can add something like this to one of my collections. If I go into my collections already, I can see, maybe I'm working on multiple papers and I'm writing multiple manuscripts. So I want to make this a little bit more organized. So what I'll do is I'll put all of my porphyrin references in my porphyrin collection, and anything from, I don't know, the new COVID-19 in a COVID-19 collection. So I don't have to go searching through all of my references here. I can actually go through and just look at, on the left-hand side, all of that information from one specific topic. Another thing you can do, as we were talking about before, is when you're in your entire library here, you can create tags. So if I wanted to tag this as porphyrin, let's say I'm interested in just that sort of information right there, and I want to look at anything that I've tagged as porphyrin. I can go ahead and look at anything that I've tagged with that specific tag on it. So I can also do that within a collection. If I want to tag specific things within a collection, it's another way for me to easily organize and find all of that information for that specific tag that I've done. So let's take a look at what we can actually do within that reference. So I've favorited a specific citation here. And what I can do is go in and remember how we were talking about that full text PDF. So I have access to that by clicking this specific Get Full Text PDF. And I can click multiple and you'll see them come up as tabs. So if I'm working on multiple of these, you'll just see them across the top. But you can see I've gotten that full download of the PDF that I can read through Mendeley, and I can also mark that up. So what do I mean by marking that up? I mean that we can create highlights within the text. I can change the colors of those highlights. I can create sticky notes. And so, you know, if I was going through and I was reading something and I thought that it would be an important quotation to include or an important reference to include within a manuscript that I'm already writing, I can create a sticky note and say, hey, this is why I think this specific highlighted text is important. So how do I highlight text? You have two different ways. You can either go ahead and left click and drag. Oops, I gotta delete that annotation I just created there. So you can go ahead and, oh, I keep doing the same thing. Okay, that's what's wrong. There we go. Okay, so I can highlight by dragging and clicking highlight down here. I can right-hand click to add a sticky note. I can left-hand click to change the color of the highlight that I've just done. I can also delete this annotation using my left click, or I can come up here on the left-hand side, I can highlight my text, or I can highlight a rectangle. So the difference just between highlighting the text and highlighting the rectangle, pretty self-explanatory, but you're able to do either or both. Okay, we can also create sticky notes, clicking the sticky area and dragging and just clicking and dropping. I can say that this is a note for RPI note. And then if I'm interested in going back and figuring out what that sticky note said, you just click it and you can either find it or delete it. So I can find all of those sticky note citations and markups that I've made by going to the annotation spot over here on the left-hand side. So you can see all of the different notes and quotes I've just put down here. But let's say that this article was more than just 4 pages long. Let's say that this article was like 40 pages long, and I've gone through and I've read and I've annotated and marked it up. So if I don't remember where a specific note was or quote was, I can go through my annotations on the right-hand side over here and scroll up or down to find out where that information was. But I can click and find where I thought something was important and why, and it'll bring me right to that spot within this paper. So again, I can find out where those quotes were, and it brings me straight to there, and I can see why I thought that was important or how I would use the sticky note best. Another thing that we have available is to use a notebook. So I can actually pull out a quotation and write down why I've saved that quotation over here on the left-hand side as well. If I want to make more pages on this notebook, I can create a new page. I can say that this is for RPI, and I just wanted to take notes as I was writing this. Now, all of this saves, and you can see it up here syncing automatically. So if I had this within a group where I was sharing with other collaborators, they would be able to open this document up and see what I've done, see the notes that I've made, and see the changes that I've made as I'm kind of going through this information. Okay, so let's go back to our library here, and we'll go back to all of our references, and let's pull in a reference and a citation here. So if I was searching from something like Scopus, so I have Scopus up top here. I've gone and I've grabbed an article from a Porphyrin journal here. Now there are a couple of different ways to do this. If you're looking through Scopus, you can automatically send and download or export straight to Mendeley, but you can also grab your digital object identifier, and that is located on the left-hand side over here. So we go back to our results here. Oops. I think you can export this straight to Mendeley using our Mendeley plug here. So we can export this one, and once that bar up top here turns green, that would mean that this has already been saved to our Mendeley reference manager. So I already have this one within my Mendeley already, so that's not going to work for me, but I just wanted to show you guys where to find that information. So the same thing that you can do if you're on ScienceDirect. So here is a ScienceDirect paper that I found using just the general searching structure here. The digital object identifier is right up top. So if you didn't have the ability to just add it straight from Mendeley, so you can add to Mendeley straight from here, or if you're in Mendeley, add new, go to your manual entry here and paste that digital object identifier right up top here. And that'll go ahead and pull that in for you. The third way that I'm going to show you how to grab those references and citations is from an open access article that I found on the internet. So one of the things that we had talked about before was your Mendeley web importer, and that is a plugin for your browser. So in your reference manager, you can go through and actually download this plugin over here. So if you have this downloaded, you can click on your web importer, sign in through here. This is just going to have us sign in really quickly. Perfect. Okay. So since I'm signed into my Mendeley account, signed into my Mendeley web importer, this is just going to catch up to us really quickly here. What this will do is scan what I'm currently on, the page that I'm currently on. It'll find all of that information. It'll find our digital object identifier, all of our different authors, the title, etc. And I gotta reopen this really quick. Well, if my computer catches up to us quickly here, there is an easy way where it can just go ahead and, oh, there we go. So you, there we go. Perfect. So what it does is it finds our digital object identifier. It finds our title and all of our authors. You can see the PDF. I can make sure that I'm clicked on to the right article here. And I just want to make sure this is human telomere. This is human telomere, full article, and click add. Once that does that, once you'll see there's going to be a green check mark saying that it's added to our Mendeley library. And once that's added in, we can go straight to our reference manager, head straight into our library, and then make sure that that is the article that we were interested in. So we'll just give this another second here to add. My apologies for my internet being slightly slow, but we'll go straight into our library here, and then there we go, human telomere. Perfect. So this is that article that we've just put in. And you can see this is the correct title here, our correct authors. And then as you go down, you have all of that information that we had before. You also have the option to get the PDF if you are interested in that. Okay. So the last thing that I want to go into quickly is, let me just grab, let's see. We are going to copy an abstract, just so I have a little bit of information here. We'll paste this into Microsoft Word. So let's say, for example, I have a manuscript that I'm in the middle of writing, and I'd like to add some references into this manuscript. So the way I would do that would be to go up to References, click our Mendeley Cite button on the right-hand side. So again, this is a plugin that you need to download. Perfect. So I have the ability right here to see the manuscript that I'm working on, and then all of the references that I have that are added into my Mendeley library. So anywhere that you put your cursor is going to be where we insert a reference. So let's say that I'm interested in just down here at the bottom. Let's say that I would like to add a specific reference. So you can see all of my references are here on the left, or excuse me, on our right-hand side. You have the ability to change to specific ones that you've just favorited, maybe looking through your collections and just whittling down to whichever manuscript you're currently working on. So we're going to use the ones that are in our Porphyrin citation collection right now. So let's say that I'm interested in adding that citation. So I had clicked that citation before, so you can see I have the option to insert that citation. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, and you can see I have the superscript of 1 right here. one of the great things about this Mendeley Cite plugin is that if I wanted to, let's say I am continuing to work on this manuscript and I go back and I say, oh, I would like to add something a little higher up. So let's find a spot up top here that I'd like to add a different reference to. I'll go ahead and click where I'd like it. And you can see once I insert this citation, this is now our number 1, and our previous citation is now number 2. So this automatically updates as you add these citations to your manuscript. So I'm going to go ahead and just add 1/3 one in here. So you can see that this is now number 1, number 2, and number 3 superscript. So let's say that I am writing this manuscript and I no longer want to have superscripts. Let's say that I would like to change my citation style. So I can do that by coming up top here. Right now, you can see the current citation style we're using is for Nature. But let's say I wanted to go to IEEE. So we go down, we can click the citation style, click Update. And now you can see from superscripts, we have now bracketed numbers. Let's say that I didn't want to do that. I wanted to put in last names or something like that. I could change again, and you could see that changes all of the citations and the references that I've added to my manuscript. If I would like to update to a different style, something that's not automatically input into my reference manager site, I can go ahead and select another style and upload different citation styles off of the internet or any specific styling that I've liked. Another thing that we can do once we get to the bottom here is we can click more and insert a bibliography. So wherever my cursor was located, right, that was down below here, my bibliography will be inserted into that specific spot. So you can see not only when I change my citation style, does that change my bibliography? Does it only change my references, but it also changes my bibliography. So I can go through and change each one of these to match whichever one I was interested in adding at the time. So I think those are the 3 most important parts of Mendeley that I would like to show you guys today. I know that this was probably not going to take up the full hour, but in the meantime, I'd like to pause right now and just see, does anybody have any questions?
Elizabeth, just so you know, I've been keeping an eye on the chat window, but no questions have come in. I actually have one if nobody has a question that they need to ask.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I know in my own experience with using programs like this, I'm just curious your thoughts on the Mendeley, the web importer. When students or faculty are using this, would you recommend they use it with certain browsers, or is it compatible with multiple ones?
So this one is really compatible with all of them. I haven't stumbled into a problem yet.
Okay.
So, I would personally say that, Chrome, I think, is the best, but you can really use it on any.
Okay. Yeah, students must really love that flexibility with it.
Yeah. I mean, for us, really finding like the ease of how to add this sort of information into your research ecosystem, right? Anything that we could do to make your lives easier as researchers is really what we're trying to do. So we are collecting feedback, right? So if anybody has any feedback that they would like to send over to me, or if they have requests, there are a couple of things that we're working on in the future of Mendeley, right, to make things a little bit easier. So right now, we don't have a way to deduplicate references within a manager, right? So if I had added multiple of the same, I would have to go through and manually delete. We're trying to find a way that we can automatically deduplicate for you so that you can basically pick and choose which ones get deleted and which ones stay. There are a couple of other things that we've been doing. We've been making updates to the Mendeley site, where you're now able to go through and choose from a specific collection. So before, we didn't have the ability to go through and decide, hey, I created a collection for porphyrins because I'm writing a porphyrin manuscript. So before, I have to go through all of the references within my library. Now I can whittle down to specific collections, and I can find those specific sites that I have and references much easier than I could if I was just, trying to find throughout the entire, let's say, the entire library that I have. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Awesome. Do I have any other questions?
Oh, there's actually a question that just came in from Liz King, and I can read it for you because I know you can't see them easily. Liz just writes, this demo will be very useful for RPI students. I think they will use the Mendeley Cite Plugin and notes feature as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I know that when I was in college, like I said, when I was writing my manuscript, this was incredibly helpful for me, just because it's much easier for me to not have to worry about, you know, organization and trying to make sure that each time I'm going through and manually updating these, like I don't have to worry about that anymore. All I have to do is just change it. It automatically updates for me. So that's very, very helpful for me. I'm hoping that it's going to be helpful for everybody else. But like I said, I am always open to taking feedback back to our internal team. So if anybody has any thoughts, any questions, if anybody who's watching this demo who has my email address would like to go over specific topics, please feel free to reach out to me and we can walk through. I'm always available for a Zoom. You can give me a call at any point, and we can walk through any of the questions you guys have together. But with that, I am going to stop recording.